The trailer for Thor Love and Thunder dropped last night. There's some really interesting things going on with Thor and his hero's journey in the MCU. I've got some thoughts that I want to share with you guys and some of the news. So stay tuned because we're talking about Thor Part 4 Love and Thunder in this video. What's up, y'all? My name is Prince and I'm an urban acolyte. We're talking about the hero's journey in pop culture, specifically Thor's hero's journey in the MCU. And those of you who've been with me for a hot minute, you know that I've always said that Thor was my favorite of the Avengers. The Kenneth Branagh first Thor movie that was, Kenneth Branagh is a Shakespearean actor and director. And that's the kind of, he kind of fed that into the Thor movie, the first one, right? It was a bit of a comedy. It was kind of heavier compared to all of the MCU movies except for Eternals. As far as the hero's journey, I think Thor has had one of the most interesting journeys in the MCU out of all of the characters, and that's something I want to dive into. But first, let's take a look at the synopsis to Thor Love and Thunder, Thor Part 4. So this is coming from CBR.com. We've got the synopsis to the movie that dropped shortly after the trailer dropped last night. And I say last night for me because I'm on the other side of the world from most of you guys here in Southeast Asia. Right. So it says the film finds Thor, played by Chris Hemsworth, on a journey unlike anything he's ever faced, a quest for inner peace. But his retirement is interrupted by a galactic killer known as Gore the God Butcher, played by Christian Bale, who seeks the extinction of the gods. To combat the threat, Thor enlists the help of King Valkyrie, played by Tessa Thompson, Korg, played by director Taika Waititi, and ex-girlfriend Jane Foster, played by Natalie Portman, who, to Thor's surprise, inexplicably wields his magical hammer, Mjolnir, as the Mighty Thor. Together they embark on a harrowing cosmic adventure to uncover the mystery of the God Butcher's vengeance and stop him before it's too late. Directed by Taika Waititi, Thor Ragnarok, Jojo Rabbit, and produced by Kevin Feige and Brad Winterbaum, Thor Love and Thunder opens in theaters July 8th, 2022. All right, so we've got a number of things going on here. Let's hop over to IGN.com because I think they have more. So they've got the synopsis here, which we just read. They say that Gore the God Butcher is not featured in the new trailer, but the synopsis offers a pretty good glimpse of what to expect from the villain. Gore the God Butcher was first revealed in Thor God of Thunder #1 in 2013. You can read our full explainer here. I might check that out later as I maybe if I decide to dive more into the mythos surrounding this, right? So I'm not doing a trailer reaction at all because they play Guns N' Roses Sweet Child of Mine. That will get copyrighted here on YouTube, right? So shout out to everybody doing trailer reactions. Good luck with that content ID claim that you're all gonna probably get smacked with. What I was saying, what I'm more interested in, nobody is going to talk about, and that's Thor and his hero's journey. And I'm not going to ramble on for 30 minutes like I did in the Superman video. If you haven't seen it, go check that out. But anyway, we're talking about Thor. So I've been seeing people talk about not liking the direction of Thor under Taika Waititi, and I'm like, yo man, like the MCU, this is the comic book movies. Even Kenneth Branagh, where under that Perlmutter guy, phase 1 was kind of like, we're experimenting, we're throwing stuff out there and really we are building up this Infinity Stone saga that we're doing, where I think I've been calling it the Infinity Gem saga that we're building up to in phases 1, 2, and 3. But phase 1 was really like, we're presenting these heroes. We're taking shots in the dark. We don't really know what's gonna work, right? You throw stuff out there and see what works. Thor's movies were hurting. Like, people were saying Thor, the Dark Elves, these were not the best movies of phases 1 and 2. And I'm like, yo man, but I really like Thor. But the story, when you look at the hero's journey, they did do a good job with that, right? You know, the Dark Elves story, kind of, you know, Thor thinks Loki's dead, and with Ultron, Thor seeing Ragnarok is coming, right? So first you've got kind of this unworthy storyline where Thor is you know, running around with the Warriors 3 and Sif, Lady Sif, and he's an adventurer, right? And he's knocking people out and swinging his hammer, and you know, he's off to the next adventure, right? He's a wild child, right? He thinks he's a hero, but he's really just off. He's in his. I get like my one and only real sermon was the phases of men, right? And now, you know, if I were to give that sermon now, I'd get in, well, you know, with the red pill, you know, this red pill movement that's going on, you know, has a very kind of a lot of people have this very Christian tone to it, like evangelical conservative Christian element to it. They would love it, and I'm pretty sure that the book that I used to develop that sermon from is probably something that, you know, these red pill people are probably reading, right? But within that, like, one of the phases of manhood was the cowboy phase. So that's what we actually, now that I think about it, right, it's like the cowboy, there's like the lover poet phase, and then there's the king phase. And now that I think about that, like, this is off the dome. Like, I hadn't thought about this, but I didn't think I was going to talk about this. As I said, yo man, like, I need to say something about, or I want to say something about Thor Love and Thunder. But really, when I think about that, I might have to flesh that out, because I know there's another book on that topic that Elliot hosts, who's like dived completely into this whole red pill movement. Shout out to my big brother Elliot. Like, y'all wouldn't be seeing me on YouTube if it weren't for conversations that Elliot and I had after my grandma died, and he was pushing me to do YouTube and not just make videos about swinging kettlebells in my garage. But Thor is really in that cowboy phase when we start with the first movie, and now he's kind of gone into, he's kind of lost he lost himself after Asgard fell, right? It was like, I'm in the king phase, but not really. He's a king, but not really. He's really kind of gone from the cowboy to the warrior, and he's thinking he's king, but he's not. And it's funny because in the cowboy phase, it's like, oh, well, I'm about to be king. And, you know, there's the whole thing with Odin, and he's like, but you're not king, right? That when you think about all of that, that is a very touching, very beautiful scene that sets up, you know, the trajectory of Thor's character and his adventure and his hero's journey, right? So Thor's in the cowboy phase when we first meet him in the Kenneth Branagh movie, right? And then in the Dark Elves phase, he's already transitioned by the end to the warrior phase, but he's still kind of a cowboy in a sense, because it's like, now I'm a cowboy with responsibility, and that responsibility becomes more apparent after Loki does what he does in the first Avengers movie, and then the Dark Elves and Ultron, and I'm seeing Ragnarok coming. Now I'm in the warrior phase. I'm trying to prevent all of this. And then he gets a smack of reality in Thor Ragnarok, right? Literally, his big sister Hela smacks him clear across the galaxy, right? And you know, he's afraid of Hela, and he loses his hammer, he loses his father, right? Everything is lost. And then it's like, oh, it's not my job to prevent Ragnarok from happening. I have to make it happen in order to reach my next phase of evolution, right? To transition to the next step. But then he gets lost, right? Because what happens? Thanos comes and smacks him, literally smacks him down, beats the crap out of him, kills Loki, right? And Thor just luckily manages to survive because he's Thor, right? And he's got that godlike durability. And then, what does he do? He makes, this god killer axe, right? And he's back into the warrior phase. And after everything that happens, right, Thanos succeeds and snaps half of everything away, into dust, right? Thor loses himself. Like what? Well, no, then 5 years pass and he kills Thanos, and it's like, but look at what I lost, right? So we've got this Thor who's broken and he can't transition because it's like, well, what do I do now? Everything is lost. So, all of the events in Endgame happen, and all of the Avengers, the key team from the first Avengers, they've all kind of completed the cycle, right? They all become mentors, become boon givers, right? Iron Man passes on the mantle of Iron Man to Peter. I don't want to say Spider-Man. He passes it on to Peter, and they're, oh, we got Spider-Boy, and people, Spider-Man Twitter is, oh man, now they couldn't wait for No Way Home, and now they're suddenly, with the thought that Andrew and I want to say Tom, the two previous Spider-Men, that they might be appearing in other Spider-Man projects in the Sony verse, or if the MCU goes the whole Spider-Verse route, or whatever the future is with other Spider-Man projects, right? That they think now all of a sudden they all hate Tom and he's Spider-Boy, and it's like, yo, but what did I tell you guys in a video leading up to No Way Home like 2 years ago? I was like, when everybody was when Spider-Man Twitter was upset because Spider-Man Twitter is about as bad as Star Wars Twitter, right? They're both equally bad, but I haven't followed Spider-Man Twitter to the extent that I followed Star Wars Twitter, right? But they both suck, right? All these people can't wait for something, and then the minute it comes out, a few months pass and all of a sudden it's bad, right? It sucks. And I'm like, you were pissing your pants a year ago for any minute detail about this thing, and now you hate it, right? It's why I don't know. It's why I needed to take a break from dealing with geek stuff, right? Because some of these fans I can't use a word that I started to use because I'll get in trouble, right? Cancel Urban Acolyte, right? But it's like, oh, we hate Spider-Boy now, and or Iron Lad, or whatever, the Iron Spider-Boy or whatever, and I'm like, yo, man, Peter is not yet Spider-Man, and the Spider-Man trilogy that we got is him becoming Spider-Man. And what happens at the end of No Way Home? He meets his other doppelgangers from, in the multiverse and the Spider-Verse, these other versions of Peter Parker, and it's like, oh, but they didn't have Avengers and they never met Tony Stark. And the way that I started out with my own suit and my own web shooters, they did that and they evolved it, and look at their suits, and now he's got no Aunt May, he's got no Uncle Ben, everyone has forgotten about him, and he's on his own. He's a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, right? So that cycle has been completed. But what I was saying was that the way Endgame ended was the mantle was passed on to Peter. Now that mantle is going to get passed on to Ironheart, and we might pretend there's a strong chance we're going to see Iron Lad, who is another version of Kang the Conqueror, who's already made his entrance into the MCU. And then apparently there was a Kang cameo by like one of his one of his versions is like a Egyptian pharaoh, and apparently that an image of that pharaoh was in last week's Moon Knight episode, right? So there's the mantle. Hawkeye. Now we've got another Hawkeye. Hawkeye has become a boon giver. Captain America. We've got Captain America. The Sam is Captain America. The shield, the boon was literally passed. The mantle of Captain America has been passed, right? Captain Marvel, we're getting, Monica Rambeau, and we're getting Miss Marvel, and the Marvels, she's the boon giver, passing the boon of, I'm really kind of, the reason the Avengers Initiative was started, and she's passing on this Marvelness, this idea of the cosmic superhero. She's building her team, and she's the mentor to her two mentees, right? Both of them looked up to her as young women, right? She's Auntie Carol to Monica, and she's Miss Marvel's favorite Avenger, her hero, right? So she's literally the mentor, the old person on the side of the road. For whatever reason, she doesn't age, or ages slower, right? So that who else is left? Hulk. She-Hulk is coming, right? He's gonna be the mentor to his cousin. Somehow he passes on the boon, his genetic material, that's gonna cause his cousin to Hulk out as well, right? And he's gonna have to mentor her, right? So who does that leave? That leaves Thor, right? And Thor hasn't passed on the boon. He hasn't become a boon giver, right? He hasn't really become king. He gave king of Asgard, of New Asgard, to Valkyrie, right? And he was like, yo man, I'm off to be an Asgardian of the galaxy. And this synopsis says that Thor is in retirement, and when you listen to the trailer, it's kind of like he doesn't really have any direction. It's like, it's like he's doing the Thanos thing, right? Thanos snapped away half of everything and then goes, I guess back to Titan and has a garden, and that's like kind of what Thor is doing. It's kind of a mirror of Thanos, right? It's like, well, he's back in shape. He's not fat Thor anymore. He's got his muscles on. He's got his swole on, eating, organic, and drinking kombucha, and he only uses his axe to tend the fields, and it's supposed to be a god killing weapon, but now it's a farming tool, right? And it's like, this isn't, Thor is supposed to be the defender of Earth, right? Within the mythology of Thor, Thor is like humanity's defender, right? Thor's birthday is December 25th. Your God was nailed to a tree and my God carries a hammer. That's the joke, right? Thor, they should have dropped this trailer not on a Monday night for me, but on a Thursday. Why? Because Thursday is Thor's day, right? The holy trinity of days. Wednesday, Odin's day. Thursday, Thor's day. Friday, Freya's day. That's your lesson. That's your mythology, like real life lesson. Every Thursday, we honor Thor. At least in the Western world, days don't have those names on this side of the world, and and the lightning bolt and Thor and all of that, that's in Buddhism, that's a symbol of mythology, right? So we have something that must happen to call Thor back into action, right? Is that we've got Gore the god killer who's killing gods, right? And Thor, I believe this is going to push Thor into the role of Odin. Like, you really do have to become king, right? We're going to see the pantheon of gods, right? It looked like Thor was meeting with Zeus, right? Another thunder god, right? But Zeus is more in line with Odin. And I think there might be a conversation like, yo man, you slacking on your pimping, like you supposed to be like me, right? At this point, you're Odin's son. You know, just like I was the son of a Titan, at some point I had to step up and assume, you know, the leader of the pantheon of Olympus. You know, Asgard was destroyed, but now there's new Asgard, and it's your job to raise up a new pantheon of Asgardians, right? Because Loki is somewhere out there. I don't know if he'll make an appearance here, but there's a Loki variant out there. He's dealing with Kang, and I'm guessing whatever is going on with Kang and the bigger story in the MCU, I have no idea what that is, because there's so many different things. You know, we got Moon Knight, and Moon Knight is an avatar of the Egyptian pantheon, the Ennead, right? And Bast is making an appearance here, and Bast has some relationship with Hathor. I started to do a video on this last night, but I'm saying it now, is that Hathor is also Sekhmet, who has some kind of she gets mentioned in I think Infinity War, where T'Challa is talking about, you know, death and the transition to the next plane, this astral plane, that's and the kings of Wakanda are led by Bast and Sekhmet, right? So it's like, so the Ennead has some relation, and Bast has some relation with Bast. I think it was an Egyptian goddess, right? The cat god of Egypt, right? So Bast, you know, was like, Bast fell out with the Ennead, and you know, was like, yo man, well, I guess the Ennead was forgotten, and Bast was like, well, I don't want to be forgotten. Here's the Wakandans, so you know, they're gonna be my people, and I'll be remembered by them. And so in a sense, you know, you could kind of say in a sense that the Black Panther is in a way kind of an avatar of Bast, but not really. The shaman is in the communication with the gods, but not necessarily an avatar. So like I said, that could be something that happens with the Shuri character, where, you know, in other videos I'm like, yo man, Shuri is supposed to become like some kind of a mystic and not the Black Panther. Like, people, oh man, make it Shuri, you hate women, Prince. And I was like, no, Shuri is something else, something equally awesome. And it would be interesting to see them mix this tech genius with the science with the mystical. Would be really cool to see. And that's why I'm like, yo man, I don't want to see Shuri be Black Panther, because that's actually limiting the character, right? But people just or you know, get simple with this stuff, and I think too deeply on all of this stuff. You know, why I say, yo man, when I have a theory, don't, just because it sounds dope, like, don't buy into it, because like my cousin DJ told me, he was like, yo man, you get too deep in, you know, the average person watching this. I'm a casual, but I can get deep, and the casuals, they're not thinking that deeply about this stuff. They just want to eat popcorn, see something cool, get a story, and go home, and maybe come back and buy another ticket and see it again 2 or 3 times, you know, because that's how they make their money, right? But Thor, like I've been saying, Thor doesn't become a boon giver. He doesn't become a mentor. And so with Jane Foster, she's the Mighty Thor. And I said this a few minutes ago. I was like, there has to be a Thor. There has to be a defender of Earth. And I think what we're going to see is Thor transition to King Thor. He's going to really take that, you know, okay, you've been the cowboy. You've been the warrior. Now you're the poet, right? Because this is Thor, Love and Thunder. I think we're going to see Thor as the poet, as the lover, right? And there's going to be a transition to King. And I don't know if there'll be any more solo Thor movies after this. They could do the Mighty Thor. But I believe, like what I was kind of saying, hinting at in that Superman video, where I was like, yo, man, I'd like to see Henry Cavill say, yo man, I'm gonna be like Chris Hemsworth and be this Thor character till the wheels fall off, till I'm King Thor, right? Have Superman, this Henry Cavill's Superman as a mentor to any other Superman character, where he can travel throughout the multiverse and show up. I don't know, like maybe you go, what's that, all-star Superman, where he absorbs like way too much solar radiation and eventually, he becomes one with the universe or something. They could go that route where you got some ultimate Superman, right? But I'm not going that far with Thor, right? But I'm saying like King Thor, right? Where he's got the Odin force and he's kind of swoops in, and it's like anywhere he becomes a mentor to the new Avengers, and he's part of this mystical story that's going on, right? Because Doctor Strange is setting up some crazy stuff with the multiverse and mysticism and magic. Black Panther is probably on a collision course with that stuff, with this Thor movie and things happening in Moon Knight. It's happening on that side of the world. And who knows what else is coming with Eternals and what they're setting up. And then Blade apparently made a cameo at the end of Eternals. So you got, Black Knight, Blade, and, potentially the Midnight Suns, right? We got a lot of magical stuff happening and a lot of potential for Thor to show up as kind of, the Odinson, right? King Thor. A lot of people who were big fans of Thor that I've had, real life conversations with have been hoping that's the route that they're going. That's where Thor goes. And for me, that's the completion of Thor's hero's journey, is he becomes king, right? And then there's more challenges after that, but, challenges to New Asgard and other stories that can be told. But for me, I'm seeing this as Thor is the poet. And where he can go, where I would like to see him go, is to go from poet to king, to complete that cycle. He went from cowboy to warrior to the lover and the poet, and eventually to the king. It'll make all the red pills happy, because that's the stuff that they teach. And we've seen Thor have the darkest night of the soul is Fat Thor, and I'm not shaming fat people. I'm just saying that's Thor. He stopped being who he was supposed to. He just let everything go. He let himself go. He's broken physically and mentally, right? And and that's really all I got to say, because y'all probably hear my wife calling me to come and eat. Probably heard her cooking. So that's my thoughts on Thor: Love and Thunder. For now, I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. So that's it. Y'all keep on breathing, and may the force of others be with you always.